She refused to touch any man, until the rancher collapsed into her arms. She watched people she cared about struggle and fail, and she learned to protect herself by keeping her emotions close and never letting anyone get too near. Over the years, this became her rule. She would never allow herself to be touched by a man, not in friendship, not in kindness, not in love. Her life in the small town reflected this careful approach. Clara ran her family's bakery, a place that smelled of warm bread, sweet sugar, and cinnamon. Flour dusted the counters like gentle snow, and the soft hum of ovens created a rhythm she found comforting. The bakery was her world, a place where she could control everything: the recipes, the timing, the customers. People came to her for cakes, pies, and pastries, and they left with smiles, but none of that ever made her feel exposed or vulnerable. In her life, flour and sugar were safer than feelings, and her walls remained strong. Despite the closeness of the townspeople and their gentle attempts to draw her into friendships or romance, Clara remained unchanged. Her friends teased her occasionally, but she would laugh it off, hiding the discomfort beneath a cheerful exterior. She had her routines, her rules, and she was content. Love was something other people had, something that didn't fit into her carefully structured life. Then Sam arrived. He was a rancher, tall and broad-shouldered, with hands calloused from years of work in the sun and on the land. He moved into a nearby farm, and the first time Clara saw him, he seemed just like any other man, polite, friendly, and focused on his work. But there was something about him that set him apart. Perhaps it was his quiet confidence or the way he treated animals with respect. Perhaps it was the gentle smile he offered to everyone he met. Whatever it was, Clara felt a small, unrecognizable flutter inside her, a feeling she had long avoided. At first, it was subtle. She noticed him in the bakery as he came to buy bread or milk. She would catch glimpses of his easy manner and the way he greeted people with genuine warmth. He was polite, respectful, and patient, never rushing, never demanding attention, never crossing boundaries. Clara noticed, and she also noticed the discomfort it brought her. Her heart, trained to remain guarded, resisted these new sensations. She felt nervous when he was near, yet curious in a way she hadn't felt for years. Over weeks, their interactions became more frequent. Sam came regularly, sometimes asking for bread, sometimes for simple conversation. He was interested in the town, in the people, and occasionally he would ask Clara for advice on small things, recipes, directions, local events. Each time, Clara found herself drawn to his calm presence, even as she reminded herself to maintain her distance. She would smile, she would speak politely, but she would also step back, careful never to let him see beyond her carefully maintained exterior. Life in the town continued as usual, but Clara's thoughts were no longer entirely her own. She found herself thinking about Sam long after he had left the bakery. She wondered about his life, about his work on the ranch, about the quiet determination in his eyes. She did not want to feel these thoughts, these small stirrings of curiosity and warmth, but they came regardless. Her routine, once so reliable, now seemed slightly altered. Flour, sugar, and the hum of ovens no longer filled every moment. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a hot afternoon in early summer. The sun beat down mercilessly, and the air was heavy with the scent of earth and grass. Clara had just finished arranging the pastries for the day when she noticed Sam walking down the main street. He was carrying a bucket of water, sweating heavily, his hat tilted low over his face. Something about the way he moved caught her attention, not a worry or a glance, just the weight of the moment and the exhaustion it carried. Suddenly, without warning, Sam stumbled. One moment he was walking steadily, and the next, his knees buckled and he collapsed in the middle of the street. Panic surged through Clara. Time seemed to slow as she rushed toward him. The town's other people froze, unsure what to do, but Clara acted without thinking. She reached him quickly, and before she realized it, she was holding him as he fainted into her arms. The weight of him, the warmth of his body, and the faint pulse of life against her own sent a shock through Clara. For a moment, she froze, heart pounding, unsure how to react. This was unlike anything she had ever experienced. She had always maintained control, always kept her distance, yet here was a man collapsing into her embrace, and she could not step back. She cradled him carefully, her hands steady despite the racing of her thoughts, and waited until he slowly regained consciousness. When Sam's eyes fluttered open, he looked at her with surprise, then gratitude. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice weak but sincere. Clara felt a strange mix of relief and something unfamiliar, a warmth that seeped into her chest, uninvited and unstoppable. In that moment, the walls she had built around herself trembled, not because she wanted to, but because the reality of human connection had presented itself in the most immediate and undeniable way. After the incident, Clara insisted on checking on him. She brought water, offered to help him rest, and stayed nearby until he was steady on his feet again. Every moment she spent by his side added to the quiet tension growing inside her, a tension she could not explain, a feeling she had never allowed herself to feel. Over the next few days, Sam continued to come to the bakery, but now there was a subtle change in their interactions. They spoke more freely, laughed more easily, and shared small personal stories. Clara felt herself letting go in tiny ways, allowing a laugh, sharing a detail about her life, even brushing his hand accidentally when passing him a loaf of bread. Each gesture was a small rebellion against the rules she had followed for years, a silent acknowledgement that maybe, just maybe, it was okay to let someone in. Yet, even as curiosity and warmth grew, fear lingered. Clara reminded herself of her own rules, of the reason she had chosen to live a life of careful distance. She wondered if opening her heart, even slightly, would bring pain. She questioned whether the feelings she was beginning to acknowledge were real or merely a momentary distraction. But the memory of that afternoon, Sam collapsing into her arms, the weight of him pressed against her, the vulnerability of the situation, haunted her in a way she could not ignore. It was a moment of pure human connection, unplanned and raw, and it forced Clara to confront a truth she had long denied. She was capable of feeling deeply, and perhaps she was capable of loving again. As the days passed, Clara continued to wrestle with her emotions. She maintained her routines, ran her bakery, and greeted customers as always. Yet a small part of her life had shifted irreversibly. The world, once predictable and safe, had opened up to new possibilities. Sam had not only entered her town, but had also entered her life in a way that words could scarcely capture. By the end of that first part of their story, Clara found herself thinking differently about the future. She realized that life could be unpredictable, and sometimes the most important moments happened without warning. The walls she had built to protect herself were no longer entirely sufficient. They had cracks now, and through those cracks, something new and fragile could grow. Something like hope, something like love. And so, Clara, who had always refused to touch any man, who had always kept her heart safely guarded, began to face the impossible possibility that her life might be about to change forever. She did not yet know how or when, but she felt, with quiet certainty, that Sam was a part of that change. After the day Sam had collapsed, Clara could not stop thinking about him. His presence lingered in her mind like a gentle melody, one she had tried to ignore but could not. She found herself noticing small details she had never paid attention to before, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the steady rhythm of his voice, and the quiet determination in the way he moved. For the first time in years, her thoughts wandered toward someone other than herself, toward someone she did not know fully but already cared for deeply. Clara's days became a mixture of routine and anticipation. She continued to run the bakery with precision, kneading dough, arranging pastries, and greeting customers with her usual warmth. Yet beneath the normal rhythm of her life, a new tension thrummed, one she could neither control nor ignore. She realized that she wanted to see Sam, to hear about his day on the ranch, to learn about the work he loved. And even though fear whispered warnings in her mind, She found herself walking a little faster when she knew he might come to the bakery, feeling her heart beat in ways she could not explain. The first real change came when Sam invited her to visit the ranch. It was not a grand gesture, nor a formal invitation, just a simple offer to see the place where he spent most of his days. Clara hesitated at first. The thought of leaving the safety of her bakery, of stepping into a world so different from her own, filled her with nervous excitement. But curiosity won. She accepted, determined to observe from a distance and perhaps understand more about the man who had unexpectedly captured her attention. The ranch was larger than Clara had imagined. Fields stretched wide under the afternoon sun, and the scent of hay, earth, and animals filled the air. Sam moved with ease, his hands skilled and confident as he fed the animals and checked fences. Watching him, Clara felt a strange mix of admiration and longing. She saw not just a man, but a life shaped by care, hard work, and responsibility. It was a life so different from hers, yet one she found herself wanting to be part of, even in a small way. Over the following weeks, Clara visited the ranch more frequently. At first, she stayed near the house, helping with small tasks, washing dishes, or preparing simple meals. Sam appreciated the help but never demanded it. He welcomed her presence and allowed her space to feel comfortable. Slowly, through shared work and quiet conversations, Clara began to see a side of herself she had almost forgotten, a side that could laugh freely, trust gently, and enjoy companionship without fear. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Clara and Sam walked along a path that ran beside the fields. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. Clara felt a warmth she had not expected, a sense of connection that went deeper than words. Sam spoke quietly about his life on the ranch, about the challenges and joys of working with animals, and about the hope he carried for the future. Listening to him, Clara felt her walls weaken further, brick by brick. She realized that being near him, even in silence, was not frightening. It was comforting. The turning point came during a stormy afternoon. Clouds had gathered quickly, and rain began to pour, turning the fields into a blur of gray and green. Sam was working with the livestock when he slipped on the wet ground, twisting his ankle painfully. Clara, who had been nearby, rushed to his side without hesitation. She helped him to a safer spot and then guided him carefully to the barn, supporting his weight as they walked. For the first time since their friendship began, Clara held him close for more than just a brief moment. She felt the strength of his body against hers, and yet it was not overwhelming or frightening. Instead, it was grounding. As they reached the barn, Sam turned to her and smiled, a faint grimace of pain in his expression. "Thank you," he said softly. His voice carried a sincerity that touched her deeply. In that moment, Clara understood something she had long denied. Love was not just a story or a risk. It was an experience, a feeling that could arrive unexpectedly, and it could be shared safely with the right person. She realized that she could trust him, and in that trust she found freedom. From that day onward, their bond grew stronger. Clara found herself visiting the ranch more often, not out of obligation but out of genuine desire. She helped with feeding animals, mending fences, and even learning a little about the work that Sam loved. He, in turn, respected her boundaries, never pushing her beyond what she felt comfortable with. The more time they spent together, the more Clara realized that her fear of closeness had been a shield, protecting her from potential pain, but also keeping her from experiencing joy. Clara also began to notice subtle changes in herself. She laughed more freely, allowed herself small moments of spontaneity, and even started sharing stories about her past with Sam. These were things she had never done before, as she had always feared judgment or disappointment. With Sam, none of that mattered. He listened with patience and understanding, never rushing her or questioning her choices. Slowly, the walls she had built around her heart crumbled, replaced by trust, respect, and the quiet excitement of new love. One evening, after a long day at the ranch, Clara and Sam sat together under the stars. The air was cool, the earth smelled fresh from the rain, and the world felt peaceful. Sam spoke softly about his dreams and fears, and Clara found herself opening up in ways she had never allowed. She shared her hopes for the future, the small regrets she carried, and the reasons she had kept her distance from men for so long. Sam listened, never judging, never interrupting, simply offering his presence as a comfort. In that moment, Clara realized the truth she had been avoiding. Love was not about losing control or giving up oneself. It was about finding someone who could stand beside you, who could share your burdens, and who could offer strength when you needed it most. Sam had become that person for her, not through grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but through consistent kindness, patience, and understanding. As weeks turned into months, Clara and Sam's relationship deepened naturally. They worked together, laughed together, and faced small challenges side by side. Clara discovered that the very act of trusting someone, of allowing herself to care deeply, brought a joy she had never known. She realized that her past fears, while understandable, had prevented her from experiencing one of life's greatest gifts. The final moment of transformation came on a quiet afternoon. Sam was tending to the animals when Clara brought him a basket of freshly baked bread. He smiled at her, and she returned the smile, feeling a warmth in her chest she could no longer ignore. Without thinking, she stepped closer, placing a gentle hand on his arm as he turned to greet her. There was no hesitation, no fear, only the quiet acknowledgement of the bond they had built over time. Sam reached for her hand in return, and Clara felt a sense of peace and belonging she had never experienced before. From that moment onward, Clara no longer resisted the closeness she once feared. She had learned that love was not something to dread or avoid. It was something to embrace when it came in the right form, with the right person. Her heart, once carefully guarded, was now open, ready to share life's joys and sorrows with someone who truly understood her. By the end of their story, Clara and Sam had become partners not just in life, but in spirit. The bakery and the ranch existed side by side, places of work and creativity, of responsibility and care. Together, they built a life that balanced independence with connection, routine with spontaneity, and love with trust. Clara, who had once refused to touch any man, had discovered that sometimes the right person could collapse into your arms and, through patience, kindness, and understanding, change your life forever. She had learned that walls, no matter how strong, could be softened by genuine connection. She had discovered that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a doorway to joy. And most importantly, she had realized that love, when it arrived naturally and respectfully, could heal wounds, bring warmth to the coldest corners of the heart, and turn life into a story worth living.